Hello and welcome back to Brendan Moyer's Playwright Corner, where I read plays, poems, or whatever's currently striking my fancy at this moment. Today we're going to be reading two plays by the great playwright August Strindberg, entitled The Stronger and Miss Julie. We will begin with The Stronger as it is the shorter of the two plays. The characters are Mrs. X, actress, married, and Miss Y, actress, unmarried. The scene is a corner of a ladies' cafe in Stockholm in the 1880s. Two small wrought iron tables, a red plush settee, and a few chairs. Miss Y is sitting with a half-empty bottle of beer on the table before her, reading an illustrated weekly, which from time to time she exchanges for another. Mrs. X enters wearing a winter hat and coat and carrying a decorative Japanese basket. Mrs. X: "Why, Millie, my dear, how are you? Sitting here all alone on Christmas Eve like some poor bachelor." Miss Y looks up from her magazine, nods, and continues to read. Mrs. X: "You know, it makes me feel really sad to see you. Alone. Alone in a cafe and on Christmas Eve of all times. It makes me feel as sad as when once in Paris I saw a wedding party at a restaurant. The bride was reading a comic paper, and the bridegroom was playing billiards with the witnesses. Ah me, I said to myself, with such a beginning, how will it go and how will it end? He was playing billiards on his wedding day. And she, you were going to say, was reading a comic paper on hers. But that's not quite the same." A waitress brings a cup of chocolate to Mrs. X and goes out. "Do you know, Amelia, I really believe now you would have done better to stick to him. Don't forget I was the first who told you to forgive him. Do you remember? Then you would be married now and have a home. Think how happy you were that Christmas when you stayed with your fiancé's people in the country. How warmly you spoke of domestic happiness. You really quite longed to be out of the theatre. Yes, Amelia dear, home is best, next best to the stage. And as for children, but you couldn't know anything about that." Miss Y's expression is disdainful. Mrs. X sips a few spoonfuls of chocolate, then opens her basket and displays some Christmas presents. "Now you must see what I have brought for my little chicks." Takes out a doll. "Look at this. That's for Lisa. Do you see how she can roll her eyes and turn her head? Isn't she lovely? Oh, and here's a toy pistol for Maya." She loads the pistol and shoots it out at Mrs. Y, who appears frightened. "Were you scared? Did you think I was going to shoot you? Really, I didn't think you'd believe that of me. Now, if you were to shoot me, it wouldn't be so surprising. For after all, I did get in your way, and I know you never forget it, although I was entirely innocent. You still think I intrigued to get you out of the Grand Theatre. But I didn't. I didn't, however much you think I did. Well, it's no good talking. You will believe it was me." Takes out a pair of embroidered slippers. "And these are for my old man, with tulips on them that I embroidered myself. As a matter of fact, I hate tulips, but he has to have tulips on everything." Miss Y looks up, irony and curiosity in her face. Mrs. X, putting one hand in each slipper. "Look what small feet Bob has, hasn't he? And you ought to see the charming way he walks. You've never seen him in slippers, have you?" Miss Y laughs. Mrs. X: "Look, I'll show you." She makes the slippers walk across the table, and Miss Y laughs again. "Ooh, but when he's angry, look, he stamps his foot like this. 'Those damn girls who can never learn how to make coffee. Blast, that silly idiot hasn't trimmed the lamp properly.' Then there's a draft under the door, and his feet get cold. 'Hell, it's freezing, and the damn fools can't even keep the stove going.'" She rubs the sole of one slipper against the instep of the other. Mrs. Y roars with laughter. "And then he comes home, and he has to hunt for his slippers, which Mary has pushed under the bureau. Well, perhaps it's not right to make fun of one's husband like this. He's sweet anyhow, and a good, dear husband. You ought to have a husband like him, Amelia. What are you laughing at? What is it, eh? And you see, I know he is faithful to me. Yes, I know it. He told me himself, what are you giggling at, that while I was on tour in Norway, that horrible Frederica came and tried to seduce him. Can you imagine anything more abominable? I'd have scratched her eyes out if she had come around while I was at home. I'm glad Bob told me about it himself, so I didn't just hear it from gossip. And as a matter of fact, Frederica wasn't the only one. I can't think why, but all the women in the company seem to be crazy about my husband. They must think it's his position, gives him some say in who is engaged at the theatre. Perhaps you have run after him yourself. I don't trust you very far, but I know he has never been attracted to you, and you always seem to have some sort of grudge against him, or so I felt. They look at one another guardedly. Do come and spend Christmas Eve with us tonight, Amelia. Just to show that you're not offended with us, or anyhow, not with me. I don't know why, but it seems especially unpleasant not to be friends with you. Perhaps it's because I did get in your way that time. Or, I don't know, really. I don't know at all why it is. Miss Y gazes curiously at Mrs. X. It was so strange when we were getting to know one another. Do you know, when we first met, I was frightened of you. So frightened I didn't dare let you out of my sight. I arranged all my goings and comings to be near you. I dared not be your enemy, so I became your friend. And when you came to our house, I always had an uneasy feeling because I saw my husband didn't like you. And that irritated me, like when a dress doesn't fit. I did all I could to make him be nice to you, but it was no good. Until you went and got engaged. Then you became such tremendous friends that at first it looked as if you only dared show your real feelings then, when you were safe. And then, let me see, how was it after that? I wasn't jealous. That's queer. And I remember at the christening, when you were the godmother, I told him to kiss you. He did, and you were so upset. As a matter of fact, I didn't notice that then. I didn't think about it afterwards either. I never thought about it. Until now. Rises abruptly. Why don't you say something? You haven't said a word all this time. You've just let me go on talking. You have sat there with your eyes drawing all these thoughts out of me. They were there in me like silk in a cocoon. Thoughts... Mistaken thoughts? Let me think. Why did you break off your engagement? Why did you never come to our house after that? Why don't you want to come to us tonight? Miss Y makes a motion as if to speak. No, you don't need to say anything, for now I see it all. That was why. And why, and why. Yes, that's why it was. Yes, all the pieces fit together now. That's it. I won't sit at the same table as you. Moves her things to the other table. That's why I have to embroider tulips, which I loathe on his slippers, because you liked tulips. Throws the slippers on the floor. That's why we have to spend the summer on the lake, because you couldn't bear the seaside. That's why my son had to be called Eskil, because it was your father's name. That's why I had to wear your colors, read your books, eat the dishes you liked, drink your drinks, your chocolate, for instance. That's why... Oh my God. It's terrible to think of. Terrible! Everything came to me from you. Even your passions. Your soul bored into mine like a worm into an apple, and ate and burrowed, till nothing was left but the skin and a little black mold. I wanted to fly from you, but I couldn't. You were there like a snake, your black eyes fascinating me. When I spread my wings, they only dragged me down. I lay in the water with my feet tied together, and the harder I worked my arms, the deeper I sank, down, till I reached the bottom where you lay in waiting, like a giant crab to catch me in your claws. And now here I am. Oh, how I hate you! I hate you! And you just go on sitting there, silent, calm, indifferent, not caring whether the moon is new or full, if it's Christmas or New Year, or if other people are happy or unhappy. You don't know how to hate or to love. You just sit there without moving like a cat at a mouse hole. You can't drag your prey out. You can't chase it, but you can outstay it. Here you sit in your corner. You know they call it the rat trap after you reading the papers to see if anyone's ruined or wretched or been thrown out of the company. Here you sit sizing up your victims and weighing your chances, like a pilot his shipwrecks for the salvage. Poor Amelia. Do you know I couldn't be more sorry for you? I know you are miserable like the wounded creature, and vicious because you are wounded. I can't be angry with you. I should like to be, but after all, you are the small one. And as for your affair with Bob, that doesn't worry me in the least. Why should it matter to me? And if you or somebody else taught me to drink chocolate. What's the difference? Drinks a spoonful, smugly. Chocolate is very wholesome anyhow. And if I learnt from you how to dress, tant mieux. That only gave me a stronger hold over my husband. And you have lost what I gained. Yes, to judge from various signs, I think you now have lost him. Of course, you meant me to walk out, as you once did and which you're now regretting. But I won't do that. One shouldn't be narrow-minded, you know. And why should nobody else want what I have? Perhaps, my dear, taking everything into consideration at this moment, it is I who am the stronger. You never got anything from me. You just gave away. From yourself. And now, like the thief in the night, when you woke up, I had what you had lost. Why was it then that everything you touched became worthless and sterile? You couldn't keep a man's love, for all your tulips and your passions, but I could. You couldn't learn the art of living from your books, but I learnt it. You bore no little Esquil, although that was your father's name. And why is it you are silent? Everywhere, always silent. Yes, I used to think this was strength, but perhaps it was because you hadn't anything to say. Because you couldn't think of anything. Rises and picks up the slippers. Now I'm going home, taking the tulips with me, your tulips. You couldn't learn from others. You couldn't bend, and so you broke like a dry stick. I did not. Thank you, Amelia, for all your good lessons. Thank you for teaching my husband how to love. Now I'm going home. To love him. Exit. And now we go on to Miss Julie, a tragedy in one act. The characters are Miss Julie, aged 25, Jean, a valet, aged 30, and Kristen, the cook, aged 35. Scene: a large kitchen of a Swedish manor house in a country district in the 1880s. Midsummer Eve. The kitchen has 3 doors, 2 small ones into Jean's and Kristen's bedrooms, and a large glass-fronted double one opening to a courtyard. This is the only way to the rest of the house. Through these glass doors can be seen part of a fountain with a cupid, lilac bushes in flower, and the tops of some Lombardy poplars. On one wall are shelves edged with scalloped paper on which are kitchen utensils of copper, iron, and tin. To the left is the corner of a large tiled range and part of its chimney hood. To the right, the end of the servants' dinner table with chairs beside it. The stove is decorated with birch boughs, the floor strewn with twigs of juniper. On the end of the table is a large Japanese spice jar full of lilac. There are also an icebox, a scullery table, and a sink. Above the double door hangs a big old-fashioned bell. Near it is a speaking tube. A fiddle can be heard from the dance in the barn nearby. Kristen is standing at the stove, frying something in a pan. She wears a light-colored cotton dress and a big apron. Jean enters, wearing livery and carrying a pair of large riding boots with spurs, which he puts in a conspicuous place. Jean: Miss Julie's crazy tonight again, absolutely crazy. Kristen: Oh, so you're back, are you? Jean: When I'd taken the Count to the station, I came back and dropped in at the barn for a dance. And who did I see there but our young lady leading off with the gamekeeper? But the moment she set eyes on me, up she rushes and invites me to waltz with her. And how she waltzed, I've never seen anything like it. She's crazy. Kristen: Always has been, but never so bad as this last fortnight since the engagement was broken off. Yes, that was a pretty business to be sure. He's a decent enough chap too, even if he isn't rich. Oh, but they're choosy. Sits down at the end of the table. In any case, it's a bit odd that our young, lady would rather stay at home with the yokels than go with her father to visit her relations. Perhaps she feels a bit awkward after that bust-up with her fiancé. Maybe. That chap had some guts, though. Do you know the sort of thing that was going on, Kristen? I saw it with my own eyes, though I didn't let on I had. You saw them? Didn't I just? Came across a pair of them one evening in the stable yard. Miss Julie was doing what she called training him. Know what that was? Making him jump over her riding whip the way you teach a dog. He did it twice and got a cut each time for his pains. But when it came to the third go, he snatched the whip out of her hand and broke it into smithereens, and then he cleared off. What goings on? I never did. Well, that's how it was with that little affair. Now, what have you got for me, Kristen? Something tasty? Kristen, serving from the pan to his plate. Well, it's just a little bit of kidney I cut off their joint. Jean, smelling it. Fine. That's my special delice. Feels the plate. But you might have warmed the plate. When you choose to be finicky, you're worse than the Count himself. Pulls his hair affectionately. Stop pulling my hair. You know how sensitive I am. There, it's only love, you know. Jean eats. Kristen brings a bottle of beer. Beer at Midsummer's Eve? No thanks. I've got something better than that. From a drawer in the table brings out a bottle of red wine with a yellow seal. Yellow seal, see? Now get me a glass. You use a glass with a stem, of course, when you're drinking it straight. Kristen, giving him a wine glass. Lord help the woman who gets you for a husband, you old fusser. She puts the beer in the icebox and sets a small saucepan on the stove. Nonsense. You'll be glad enough to get a fellow as smart as me. And I don't think it's done you any harm people calling me your fiancé. Tastes the wine. Good. Very good indeed. But not quite warmed enough. Warms the glass in his hands. We bought this in Dijon. 4 francs a litre without the bottle, and duty on top of that. What are you cooking now? It stinks. Some bloody muck Miss Julie wants for Diana. You should be more refined in your speech, Kristen. But why should you spend a holiday cooking for that bitch? Is she sick or what? Yes, she's sick. She sneaked out with the pug at the lodge and got in the usual mess. And that, you know, Miss Julie won't have. Miss Julie's too high and mighty in some respects, and not enough in others, just like her mother before her. The Countess was more at home in the kitchen and cowsheds than anywhere else. But would she ever go driving with only one horse? She went round with her cuffs filthy, but she had to have the coronets on the cufflinks. Our young lady, to come back to her, hasn't any proper respect for herself or her position. I mean, she isn't refined. In the barn just now, she dragged the gamekeeper away from Anna and made him dance with her. No waiting to be asked. We wouldn't do a thing like that. But that's what happens when the gentry try to behave like the common people. They become common. Still, she's a fine girl. Smashing. Oh, come off it. I know what Clara says, and she dresses her. Clara? Pooh! You're all jealous. But I've been out riding with her. And as for her dancing, listen, Jean. You will dance with me, won't you? As soon as I'm through? Of course I will. Promise? Promise? When I say I'll do a thing, I do it. Well, thanks for the supper. It was a real treat. Corks the bottle. Julie appears in the doorway, speaking to someone outside. I'll be back in a moment. Don't wait. Jean slips the bottle in the drawer and rises respectfully. Julie enters and joins Kristen at the stove. Well, have you made it? Kristen signs that Jean is near them. Jean, gallantly. Have you ladies got some secret? Julie, flipping his face with her handkerchief. You're very inquisitive. What a delicious smell. Violets? Impertinence. Are you an expert of scent too? I must say you know how to dance. Now don't look. Go away. The music of a schottische begins. Jean, with impudent politeness. Is it some of the witch's brew you're cooking on Midsummer Eve? Something to tell your stars by so you can see your future? Julie, sharply. If you could see that, you'd have good eyes. To Kristen. Put it in a bottle and cork it tight. Come and dance this schottische with me, Jean. Jean, hesitating. I don't want to be rude, but I've promised to dance this one with Kristen. Well, she can have another, can't you, Kristen? You'll lend me Jean, won't you? It's nothing to do with me. When you're so condescending, miss, it's not his place to say no. Go on, Jean, and thank Miss Julie for the honor. Frankly speaking, miss, and no offense meant, I wonder if it's wise for you to dance twice running the same partner. especially as those people are so ready to jump to conclusions. What did you say? What sort of conclusions? What do you mean? As you choose not to understand, Miss Julie, I'll have to speak more plainly. It looks bad to show a preference for one of your retainers when they're all hoping for the same unusual favor. Show you a preference? The very idea! I'm surprised at you. I'm doing the people an honor by attending their ball when I'm mistress of the house, but if I'm really going to dance, I mean to have a partner who can lead and doesn't make me look ridiculous. If those are your orders, miss, I'm at your service. Don't take it as an order. Tonight we're all just people enjoying a party. There's no question of class. So now give me your arms. Don't worry, Kristen, I shan't steal your sweetheart. Jean gives Julie his arm and leads her out. Left alone, Kristen plays her scene in an unhurried, natural way, humming to the tune of the schottische, played on a distant violin. She cleans Jean's place, washes up and puts things away, then takes off her apron, brings out a small mirror from a drawer, props it against the jar of lilac, lights a candle, warms a small pair of tongs, and curls her fringe. She goes to the door and listens. Then, turning back to the table, finds Miss Julie's forgotten handkerchief. She smells it, then meditatively smooths it out and folds it. Enter Jean. She really is crazy. What a way to dance. With people standing grinning at her too from behind the doors. What's gotten into her, Kristen? Oh, it's just her time coming on. She's always queer then. Are you going to dance with me now? And you're not wild with me for cutting that one? You know I'm not, for a little thing like that. Besides, I know my place. Jean, putting his arm around her waist. You're a sensible girl, Kirsten, and you'll make a very good wife. Enter Julie, unpleasantly surprised. Julie, with forced gaiety. You're a fine beau, running away from your partner. Not away, Miss Julie, but as you see back to the one I deserted. Julie, changing her tone. You really can dance, you know. But why are you wearing your livery on a holiday? Take it off at once. Then I must ask you to go away for a moment, miss. My black coat's here. Indicates it hanging on the door to his room. Are you so shy of me? Just over changing a coat? Go into your room then. Or stay here and I'll turn my back. Excuse me then, miss. He goes to his room and is partly visible as he changes his coat. Tell me, Kristen, is Jean your fiancée? You seem very intimate. My fiancée? Yes, if you like. We'll call it that. Call it? Well, you've had a fiancé yourself, miss, but we really were engaged. All the same, it didn't come to anything. Jean returns in his black coat. Très gentil, Monsieur Jean. Très gentil. Vous voulez plaisanter, madame? Et vous voulez parler français? Where did you learn it? When I was sommelier at one of the biggest hotels in Lucerne. You look quite the gentleman in that get-up. Charming. Sits at the table. Oh, you're just flattering me. Flattering you? I'm too modest to believe you would pay real compliments to a man like me. So I must take it you are exaggerating. That this is what's known as flattery. Where on earth did you learn to make speeches like that? Perhaps you've been to the theatre a lot. That's right. And travelled a lot, too. But you come from this neighbourhood, don't you? Yes, my father was a labourer on the next estate, the district attorney's place. I often used to see you, Miss Julie, when you were little, though. You never noticed me. Did you really? Yes. One time especially I remember, but I can't tell you about that. Oh, do, why not? This is just the time. No, I really can't now. Another time, perhaps. Another time means never. What harm in now? No harm, but I'd rather not. Points to Kristen, now fast asleep. Look at her. She'll make a charming wife, won't she? I wonder if she snores. No, she doesn't, but she talks in her sleep. How do you know she talks in her sleep? I've heard her. They look at one another. Why don't you sit down? I can't take such a liberty in your presence. Supposing I order you to? I'll obey. Then sit down. No, wait a minute. Will you get me a drink first? I don't know what's in the icebox. Only beer, I expect. There's no only about it. My taste is so simple I prefer it to wine. Jean takes a bottle from the icebox, fetches a glass and plate, and serves the beer. At your service. Thank you. Won't you have some yourself? I'm not really a beer drinker. But if that's an order... Order? I should have thought it was an ordinary manner to keep your partner company. That's a good way of putting it. He opens another bottle and fetches a glass. Now drink my health. He hesitates. I believe the man really is shy. Jean kneels and raises his glass with mock ceremony. To the health of my lady! Bravo! Now kiss my shoe and everything will be perfect. He hesitates, then boldly takes hold of her foot and lightly kisses it. Splendid. You ought to have been an actor. Jean, rising. We can't go on like this, Miss Julie. Someone might come in and see us. Why would that matter? For the simple reason that they'd talk. And if you knew the way their tongues were wagging out there just now, What were they saying? Tell me. Sit down. Jean, sitting. No offense meant, miss, but... Well, their language wasn't nice. And they were hinting... Oh, you know quite well what. You're not a child. And if a lady is seen drinking alone at night with a man, and a servant at that, then... Then what? Besides, we're not alone. Kristen's here. Yes, asleep. I'll wake her up. Rises. Kristen, are you asleep? Kristen mumbles in her sleep. Goodness, how she sleeps. Kristen in her sleep. The Count's boots are cleaned. Put the coffee on, yes, at once. Julie, tweaking her nose. Wake up, can't you? Let her sleep. What? When you've been standing at the stove all day, you're likely to be tired at night. And sleep should be respected. Julie, changing her tone. What a nice idea. It does you credit. Thank you for it. Holds out her hand to him. Now come out and pick some lilac for me. During the following, Kristen goes sleepily to her bedroom. Out with you, Miss Julie? Yes. It wouldn't do. It really wouldn't. I don't know what you mean. You can't possibly imagine that I don't... But others do. What? That I'm in love with the valet? I'm not a conceited man. But such a thing's been known to happen. And to these rustics nothing is sacred. You, I take it, are an aristocrat. Yes, I am. And I am coming down in the world. Don't come down, Miss Julie. Take my advice. No one will believe you came down of your own accord. They'll all say you fell. I have a higher opinion of our people than you. Come and put it to the test. Come on. Gazes into his eyes. You're very strange, you know. Perhaps I am, but so are you. For that matter, everything is strange. Life, human beings, everything, just scum drifting about on the water until it sinks. Down and down. That reminds me of a dream I sometimes have, in which I'm on top of a pillar and can't see any way of getting down. When I look down, I'm dizzy. I have to get down. I have to get down, but I haven't the courage to jump. I can't stay there and I long to fall, but I don't fall. There's no respite. There can't be any peace at all for me until I'm down, right down on the ground. And if I did get to the ground, I want to be under the ground. Have you ever felt like that? No. In my dreams, I'm lying under a great tree in a dark wood. I want to get up to the top of it and look out over the bright landscape where the sun is shining and rob that high nest of its golden eggs. And I climb and climb, but the trunk is so thick and smooth, and it's so far to the first branch. But I know if I can once reach that first branch, I'll go to the top just as if I'm on a ladder. I haven't reached it yet, but I shall get there, even if only in my dreams. Here I am chatting about dreams with you. Come on, only into the park. She takes his arm and they go towards the door. We must sleep on 9 midsummer flowers tonight. Then our dreams will come true, Miss Julie. They turn at the door. He has a hand to his eye. Have you got something in your eye? Let me see. Oh, it's nothing, just a speck of dust. It'll be gone in a minute. My sleeve must have rubbed against you. Sit down and let me see to it. Takes him by the arm and makes him sit down, bends his head back and tries to get the speck out with the corner of her handkerchief. Keep still now. Quite still. Slaps his hand. Do as I tell you. Why, I believe you're trembling, big, strong man though you are. Feels his biceps. What muscles, Miss Julie? Yes, Monsieur Jean? Attention. Je ne suis qu'un homme. Will you stay still? There now. It's out. Kiss my hand and say thank you. Jean, rising. Miss Julie, listen. Kristen's gone to bed now. Will you listen? Kiss my hand first. Very well. But you only have yourself to blame. For what? For what? Are you still a child at 25? Don't you know it's dangerous to play with fire? Not for me. I'm insured. No, you're not. And even if you are, there's still stuff here to kindle a flame. Meaning yourself? Yes. Not because I'm me, but because I'm a man, and young, and good-looking? What incredible conceit. A Don Juan, perhaps. Or a Joseph. Good Lord, I do believe you are a Joseph. Do you? I'm rather afraid so. Jean goes boldly up to her and tries to put his arms around her and kiss her. She boxes his ears. How dare you? Was that in earnest or a joke? In earnest. Then what went before was in earnest too. You take your games too seriously, and that's dangerous. Anyhow, I'm tired of playing now and beg leave to return to my work. The Count will want his boots first thing, and it's past midnight now. Put those boots down. No. This is my work, which is my duty to do. But I never undertook to be your playfellow, and I never will be. I consider myself too good for that. You're proud. In some ways. Not all. Have you ever been in love? We don't put it that way. But I've been gone on quite a few girls. And once I went sick because I couldn't have the one I wanted. Sick, I mean like those princes in the Arabian Nights who couldn't eat or drink for love. Who was she? No answer. Who was she? You can't force me to tell you that. If I ask you as an equal, ask as a friend, who was she? You. How absurd. Yes. Ludicrous, if you like. That's the story I wouldn't tell you before, see? But now I will. Do you know what the world looks like from below? No, you don't. No more than the hawks and falcons do, whose backs one hardly ever sees because they're always soaring up aloft. I lived in a labourer's hovel with 7 other children and a pig, out in the grey fields where there isn't a single tree. But from the window I could see the wall round the Count's park with apple trees above it. That was the Garden of Eden, guarded by many terrible angels with flaming swords. All the same, I and the other boys managed to get to the tree of life. Does all this make you despise me? Goodness, all boys steal apples. You say that now. But all the same, you do despise me. However, one time I went into the Garden of Eden with my mother to weed the onion beds. Close to the kitchen garden there was a Turkish pavilion hung all over with jasmine and honeysuckle. I hadn't any idea what it was used for, but I'd never seen such a beautiful building. People used to go in and then come out again, and one day the door was left open. I crept up and saw the walls covered with pictures of kings and emperors, and the windows had red curtains with fringes. You know now what that place was, don't you? breaks off a piece of lilac and holds it for Julie to smell. As he talks, she takes it from him. I had never been inside the manor, never seen anything but the church, and this was more beautiful. No matter where my thoughts went, they always came back to that place. The longing went on growing in me to enjoy it fully, just once. Enfin, I sneaked in, gazed, and admired. Then I heard someone coming. There was only one way out for the gentry, but for me there was another, and I had no choice but to take it. Julie drops the lilac on the table. Then I took to my heels, plunging through the raspberry canes, dashed across the strawberry beds, and found myself on the rose terrace. There I saw a pink dress and a pair of white stockings. It was you. I crawled into a weed pile and lay there right under it among prickly thistles and damp, rank earth. I watched you walking among the roses and said to myself, if it's true that a thief can get to heaven to be with the angels, it's pretty strange that a labourer's child here on God's earth mayn't come into the park and play with the Count's daughter. Do you think all poor children feel the way you did? All poor children? Yes. Of course they do. Of course. It must be terrible to be poor. Oh, yes, Miss Julie, yes. A dog may lie on the Countess's sofa. A horse may have his nose stroked by a young lady, but a servant... Well, yes. Now and then you meet one with guts enough to rise in the world, but how often? Anyhow, do you know what I did? Jumped in the mill stream with my clothes on, was pulled out and got a hiding. But the next Sunday, when Father and all the rest went to Granny's, I managed to get left behind. Then I washed with soap and hot water, put my best clothes on, and went to church so as to see you. I did see you, and went home determined to die. But I wanted to die beautifully and peacefully without any pain. Then I remembered it was dangerous to sleep under an elder bush. I had a big one in full bloom, so I stripped it and climbed into the oat bins with the flowers. Have you ever noticed how smooth oats are? Soft to touch as human skin. Well, I closed the lid and shut my eyes, fell asleep, and when they woke me, I was very ill. But I didn't die, as you see. What I meant by all that I don't know. There was no hope of winning you. You were simply a symbol of the hopelessness of ever getting out of the class I was born in. You put things very well, you know. Did you go to school? For a while. But I've read a lot of novels and been to the theatre. Besides, I've heard educated folk talking. That's what taught me most. Do you stand round listening to what we're saying? Yes, of course. And I've heard it quite a bit, too. On a carriage box or rowing the boat. Once I heard you, Miss Julie, and one of your young lady friends. Oh, whatever did you hear? Well, it wouldn't be nice to repeat it. And I must say I was pretty startled. I couldn't think where you had learned such words. Perhaps, at bottom, there isn't as much difference between people as one's led to believe. How dare you? We don't behave as you do when we're engaged. Jean, looking hard at her. Are you sure? It's no use making out so innocent to me. The man I gave my love to was a rotter. And that's what you always say. Afterwards. Always. I think it must be always. I've heard the expression several times in similar circumstances. What circumstances? Like those in question. The last time, stop. I don't want to hear any more. Nor did she, curiously enough. May I go to bed now, please? Go to bed on Midsummer Eve? Yes. Dancing with that crowd doesn't really amuse me. Get the key of the boathouse and row me out on the lake. I want to see the sunrise. Would that be wise? You sound as though you're frightened for your reputation. Why not? I don't want to be made a fool of. nor to be sent packing without a character when I'm trying to better myself. Besides, I have Kristen to consider. So now it's Kristen. Yes, but it's you I'm thinking about too. Take my advice and go to bed. Am I to take orders from you? Just this once, for your own sake, please. It's very late, and sleepiness goes to one's head and makes one rash. Go to bed. What's more, if my ears don't deceive me, I hear people coming this way. They'll be looking for me, and if they find us here, you're done for. The chorus approaches singing. During the following dialogue, the song is heard in snatches, and in full when the peasants enter. Out of the wood 2 women came, treeteree-ra-la, treeteree-ra. The feet of one were bare and cold, treeteree-ra-la-la. The other talked of bags of gold, treeteree-ra-la, treeteree-ra. But neither had a soul to her name, treeteree-ra-la-la. The bridal wreath I give to you, treeteree-ra-la, treeteree-ra. But to another I'll be true, treeteree-ra-la-la. Julie. I know our people, and I love them. Just as they do love me. Let them come. You'll see. No, Miss Julie, they don't love you. They take your food, then spit at it. You must believe me. Listen to them. Just listen to what they're singing. No, don't listen. What are they singing? They're mocking. You and me. Oh, no. How horrible. What cowards. A pack like that's always cowardly. But against such odds, there's nothing we can do but run away. Run away? Where to? We can't get out and we can't go into Kristen's room. Into mine, then. Necessity knows no rules. And you can trust me, I really am your true and devoted friend. But supposing they were to look for you in there. I'll bolt the door. And if they try to break in, I'll shoot. Come on. Please, come. Do you promise? I swear. Julie goes quickly into his room, and he excitedly follows her. Led by the fiddler, the peasants enter in a festive attire with flowers in their hats. They put a barrel of beer and a keg of spirits, garlanded with wreaths, on the table, fetch glasses, and begin to carouse. The scene becomes a ballet. They form a ring and dance and sing and mime. Out of the wood 2 women came. Finally they go out, still singing. Julie comes in alone. She looks at the havoc in the kitchen, wrings her hands, then takes out her powder puff and powders her face. Jean enters in high spirits. Jean. Now you see. And you heard, didn't you? Did you still think it's possible for us to stay here? No, I don't, but what can we do? Run away. Far away. Take a journey. Journey? But where to? Switzerland. The Italian lakes. Ever been there? No. Is it nice? Eternal summers, oranges, and evergreens. But what will we do there? I'll start a hotel. First-class accommodation and first-class customers. Hotel? There's life for you. New faces all the time, new languages, no time for nerves or worries, no need to look for something to do, work rolling up out of its own accord. Bells ringing night and day, trains whistling, buses coming and going. And all the time, gold pieces rolling onto the counter. There's life for you. For you. And I? Mistress of the house. Ornament of the firm. With your looks and your style, oh, it's bound to be a success. Terrific. You'll sit like a queen in the office and set your slaves in motion by pressing an electric button. The guests will file past your throne and nervously lay their treasures on your table. You've no idea the way people tremble when they get their bills. I'll salt the bills when you'll sugar them with your sweetest smiles. Oh, let's get away from here. Produces a timetable. At once, by the next train. We shall be at Malmo at 6:30, Hamburg 8:40 the next morning, Frankfurt Basel by the following day, and Como by St. Gothard's Pass in, 3 days. 3 days. That's all very well. But Jean, you must give me courage. Tell me you love me. Come and take me in your arms. I'd like to, but I daren't. Not again in this house. I love you, that goes without saying. You can't doubt that, Miss Julie, can you? Miss? Call me Julie. There aren't any barriers between us now. I can't. As long as we're in this house, there are barriers between us. There's the past, and there's the Count. I've never been so servile to anyone as I am to him. I've only got to see his gloves on a chair to feel small. I've only to hear his bell and I shy like a horse. Even now, when I look at his boots standing there so proud and stiff, I feel my back beginning to bend. Kicks the boots. It's those old narrow-minded notions drummed into us as children. But they can soon be forgotten. You've only got to get to another country republic and people will bend themselves double before my porter's livery. Yes, double they'll bend themselves, but I shan't. I wasn't born to bend. I've got guts, I've got character, and once I reach that first branch, you'll watch me climb. Today I'm valet. Next year I'll be proprietor, and 10 years I'll have made a fortune, and then I'll go to Romania, get myself decorated, and I may, only say may, mind you, end up as a count. That would be very nice. You see, in Romania one can buy a title, and then you'll be a countess after all. My countess. What do I care about all that? I'm putting those things behind me. Tell me you love me. Because if you don't, what am I? I'll tell you 1,000 times over, later, but not here. No sentimentality now, or everything will be lost. We must consider this thing calmly like reasonable people. Takes a cigar, cuts and lights it. You sit down there, and I'll sit here and we'll talk as if nothing had happened. My God, have you no feelings at all? Nobody has more, but I know how to control them. A short time ago you were kissing my shoe. And now, yes, that was then. Now we have something else to think about. Don't speak to me so brutally. I'm not. Just sensibly. One folly's been committed. Let's have more. The Count will be back at any moment, and we've got to settle our future before that. Now, what do you think of my plans? Do you approve? It seems a very good idea, but just one thing. Such a big undertaking would need a lot of capital. Have you got any? Jean, chewing his cigar. I certainly have. I've got my professional skill, my wide experience, and my knowledge of foreign languages. That's capital worth having, it seems to me. But it won't buy even one railway ticket. Quite true. That's why I need a backer to advance some ready cash. How can you get all that at a moment's notice? You must get it, if you want to be my partner. I can't. I haven't any money of my own. Then the whole thing's off. And we go on as we are. Do you think I'm going to stay under this roof as your mistress? With everyone pointing at me? Do you think I can face my father after all this? No. Take me away from here, away from this shame, this humiliation. Oh my God, what have I done? My God, my God. Weeps. So that's the tune now, is it? What have you done? Same as many before you. And now you despise me. I'm falling. Fall as far as me and I'll lift you up again. Why was I so terribly attracted to you? The weak to the strong, the falling to the rising. Or was it love? Is that love? Do you know what love is? Do I? You bet I do. Do you think I never had a girl before? The things you say, the things you think, that's what life's taught me. And that's what I am. It's no good getting hysterical or giving yourself airs. We're both in the same boat now. Here, let me give you a glass of something special. Opens the drawer, takes out the bottle of wine, and fills 2 used glasses. Where did you get that wine? From the cellar. My father's Burgundy. Why not, for his son-in-law? And I drink beer. That only shows your taste not so good as mine. Thief. Are you going to tell on me? The accomplice of a petty thief. Was I blind drunk? Have I dreamt this whole night Midsummer Eve, the night for innocent merrymaking? Innocent? Is anyone on earth as wretched as I am now? Why should you be, after such a conquest? What about Kristen in there? Don't you think she has any feelings? I did think so. But I don't any longer. No, a menial is a menial. And a whore is a whore. Julie, falling to her knees, her hands clasped. Oh God in heaven, put an end to my miserable life. Lift me out of this filth I'm sinking. Save me, save me. I must admit I'm sorry for you. When I was in the onion bed and saw you up there among the roses, Yes, I'll tell you about it now. I had the same dirty thoughts as all boys. You who wanted to die because of me. And the outspin? That was just talk. Lies, you mean? More or less. I think I read a story in some paper about a chimney sweep who shut himself up in a chest full of lilac because he'd been summoned for not supporting some brat. So this is what you're like. I had to think up something. It's always the fancy stuff that catches the woman. Beast! Merde. Now you've seen the falcon's back. Not exactly its back. I was to be the first branch, but the branch was rotten. I was to be a hotel sign, and I the hotel. Sit at your counter, manage your clients, and cook their accounts. I'd have done that myself. That any human being could be so steeped in filth. Clean it up, then. Menial. Lackey. Stand up when I speak to you. Menials, whore, lackeys, harlot, shut your mouth and get out of here. Are you the one to lecture me for being coarse? Nobody of my kind would ever be as coarse as you were tonight. Do you think any servant girl would throw herself at a man that way? Have you ever seen a girl of my class asking for it like that? I haven't. Only animals and prostitutes. Go on. Hit me, trample on me. It's all I deserve. I'm rotten. But help me. If there's any way out at all, help me. I'm not denying myself a share and honor of seducing you. But do you think anybody in my place would have dared look in your direction if yourself hadn't asked for it? I'm still amazed. And proud. Why not? Though I must admit the victory was too easy to make me lose my head. Go on hitting me. Jean, rising. No. On the contrary, I apologize for what I've said. I don't hit a person who's down. Least of all a woman. I can't deny there's a certain satisfaction in finding what dazzled one below was just moonshine. That falcon's back is grey after all. That there's powder on the lovely cheeks, that polished nails can have black tips. That the handkerchief is dirty although it smells of scent. On the other hand, it hurts to find that what I was struggling to reach wasn't high and isn't real. It hurts to see you fallen so low you're far lower than your own cook. Hurts like when you see the last flowers of summer lashed to pieces by rain and turned to mud. You're talking as if you're already my superior. I am. I might make you a countess, but you can never make me a count, you know. But I am the child of a count, and you can never be that. True, but I might be the father of counts if you're a thief. I'm not. There are worse things than being a thief. Much lower. Besides, when I'm in a place, I regard myself as a member of the family to some extent, as one of the children. You don't call it stealing when children pinch a berry from overladen bushes. His passion is roused again. Miss Julie, you're a glorious woman, far too good for a man like me. You were carried away by some kind of madness, and now you're trying to cover up your mistake by persuading yourself you're in love with me. You're not, although you may find me physically attractive, which means your love's no better than mine. But I wouldn't be satisfied with being nothing but an animal for you, and I could never make you love me. Are you sure? You think there's a chance? Of my loving you, yes, of course. You're beautiful, refined, takes her hand, educated. And you can be nice when you want to be. The fire you kindle in a man isn't likely to go out. Puts his arm round her. You're like mulled wine, full of spices, and your kisses. Tries to pull her to him, but she breaks away. Let go of me. You won't win me that way. Not that way, how then? Not by kisses and fine speeches. Not by planning the future and saving you from shame. How then? How? How? I don't know. There isn't any way. I loathe you as I loathe the rats, but I can't escape from you. Escape with me. Julie, pulling herself together. Escape? Yes, we must escape. But I'm so tired. Give me a glass of wine. He pours it out. She looks at her watch. First we must talk. We still have a little time. Empties the glass and holds it out for more. Don't drink like that. You'll get tipsy. What's that matter? What's it matter? It's vulgar to get drunk. Well, what have you got to say? We've got to run away. But we must talk first, or rather I must, for so far you've done all the talking. You've told me about your life, now I want to tell you about mine, so that we really know each other before we begin this journey together. Wait. Excuse my saying so, but don't you think you may be sorry afterwards if you give away your secrets to me? Aren't you my friend? On the whole. But don't rely on me. You can't mean that. But anyway, everyone knows my secrets. Listen, my mother wasn't well born. She came of quite humble people and was brought up with all those new ideas of sex equality and women's rights and so on. She thought marriage was quite wrong. So when my father proposed to her, she said she would never become his wife. But in the end she did. I came into the world as far as I can make out against my mother's will, and I was left to run wild, but I had to do all things a boy does to prove women are as good as men. I had to wear boys' clothes, I was taught to handle horses, and I wasn't allowed in the dairy. She made me groom and harness and go out hunting. I even had to try and plow. All the men on the estate were given the women's jobs, and the women the men's, until the whole place went to rack and ruin, and we were the laughingstock of the entire neighborhood. At last my father seems to have come to his senses and rebelled. He changed everything and ran the place his own way. My mother got ill. I don't know what was the matter with her, but she used to have strange attacks and hide herself in the attic or the garden. Sometimes she stayed out all night. Then came the great fire which you have heard people talking about. The house and the stables and the barns, the whole place burnt to the ground. In very suspicious circumstances. Because the accident happened the very day the insurance had to be renewed, and my father had sent the new premium, but through some carelessness of the messenger it arrived too late. Refills her glass and drinks. Don't drink any more. Oh, what does it matter? We were destitute and had to sleep in the carriages. My father didn't know how to get money to rebuild, and then my mother suggested he should borrow from an old friend of hers, a local brick manufacturer. Drinks. My father got the loan, and to his surprise without having to pay interest. So the place was rebuilt. Do you know who set fire to it? Your lady mother. Do you know who the brick manufacturer was? Your mother's lover. Do you know whose the money was? Wait. No, I don't know that. It was my mother's. In other words, the Count's. Unless there was a settlement. There wasn't any settlement. My mother had a little money of her own which she didn't want my father to control. So she invested it with her friend, who grabbed it. Exactly. He appropriated it. My father came to know all this. He couldn't bring an action, couldn't pay his wife's lover, nor prove it was his wife's money. That was my mother's revenge. Because he made himself master in his own house. He nearly shot himself then. At least there was a rumor he tried and didn't bring it off. So he went on living, and my mother had to pay dearly for what she's done. Imagine what those 5 years were like for me. My natural sympathies were with my father, yet I took my mother's side, because I didn't know the facts. I'd learned from her to hate and distrust men. You know how she loathed the whole male sex, and I swore to her I'd never become the slave of any man. And so you got engaged to that attorney, so that he would be my slave. But he wouldn't be. Oh yes, he wanted to be, but he didn't have the chance. I got bored with him. Is that what I saw? In the stable yard? What did you see? What I saw was him breaking off the engagement. That's a lie. It was I who broke it off. Did he say it was him? The cad. He's not a cad. Do you hate men, Miss Julie? Yes. Most of the time. But when that weakness comes, oh, the shame. Then do you hate me? Beyond words. I'd gladly have killed you like an animal. Quick as you shot a mad dog, eh? Yes. But there's nothing here to shoot with. And there isn't a dog. So what do we do now? Go abroad. To make each other miserable for the rest of our lives? No. To enjoy ourselves for a day or two. For a week, for as long as enjoyment lasts. And then to die. Die? How silly. I think it would be far better to start a hotel. Julie, without listening. Die on the shores of Lake Como, where the sun always shines and at Christmas time there are green trees and glowing oranges. Lake Como's a rainy hole and I didn't see any oranges outside the shops. But it's a good place for tourists. Plenty of villas to be rented by honeymoon couples. Profitable business, that. Know why? Because they all sign a lease for 6 months and all leave after 3 weeks. Why? They quarrel, of course. But the rent has to be paid just the same. And then it's let again. So it goes on and on. For there's plenty of love, although it doesn't last long. You don't want to die with me? I don't want to die at all. For one thing, I like living. And for another, I consider suicide a sin against the Creator who gave us life. You believe in God. You. Yes, of course. And I go to church every Sunday. Look here, I'm tired of all of this. I'm going to bed. Indeed. And do you think I'm going to leave things like this? Don't you know what you owe the woman you've ruined? Jean, taking out his purse and throwing a silver coin on the table. There you are. I don't want to be in anybody's debt. Julie, pretending not to notice the insult. Don't you know what the law is? There's no law, unfortunately, that punishes a woman for seducing a man. But can you see anything for it but to go abroad, get married, and then divorce? What if I refuse this mésalliance? Mésalliance? Yes, for me. I'm better bred than you are, see? Nobody in my family committed arson. Well, you can't prove otherwise, because we haven't any family records outside the registrar's office. But I've seen your family tree in that book on the drawing room table. Do you know who the founder of your family was? A miller who let his wife sleep with the king one night during the Danish War. I haven't any ancestors like that. I haven't any ancestors at all, but I might become one. This is what I get for confiding in someone so low, for sacrificing my family honor, dishonor. Well, I told you so. One shouldn't drink, because then one talks. And one shouldn't talk. Oh, how ashamed I am, how bitterly ashamed. If at least you loved me. Look here, for the last time, what do you want? Am I to burst into tears? Am I to jump over your riding whip? Shall I kiss you and carry you off to Lake Como for 3 weeks, after which... What am I to do? What do you want? This is getting unbearable, but that's what comes about from playing around with women. Miss Julie, I can see how miserable you are. I know you're going through hell, but I don't understand you. We don't have scenes like this. We don't go in for hating each other. We make love for fun in our spare time, but we haven't all day and all night for it like you. I think you must be ill. I'm sure you're ill. Then you must be kind to me. You sound almost human now. Well, be human yourself. You spit at me, then won't let me wipe it off. On you. Help me. Help me. Tell me what to do, where to go. Jesus, as if I knew. I've been mad, raving mad, but there must be a way out. Stay here and keep quiet. Nobody knows anything. I can't. People do know. Kristen knows. They don't know and they wouldn't believe such a thing. But it might happen again. That's true. And there might be consequences. Consequences. Fool that I am, I never thought of that. Yes. There's nothing for it but to go. At once. I can't come with you. That would be a complete giveaway. You must go alone, abroad, anywhere. Alone? Where to? I can't. You must. And before the Count gets back. If you stay, we know what will happen. Once you've sinned, you feel you might as well go on and the harm's done. Then you get more and more reckless, and in the end you're found out. No, you must go abroad. Then write to the Count and tell him everything except that it was me. He'll never guess that, and I don't think he'll want to. I'll go if you come with me. Are you crazy, woman? Miss Julie elopes with valet. Next day it would be in the headlines and the Count would never live it down. I can't go. I can't stay. I'm so tired. I'm so completely worn out. Give me orders. Set me going. I can't think of any more. I can't act. You see what weaklings you are. Why do you give yourselves airs and turn up your noses as if you're the lords of creation? Very well. I'll give you your orders. Go upstairs and dress. Get money for the journey and come down here again. Come up with me. To your room. Now you've gone crazy again. No. Go along at once. Takes her hand and pulls her to the door. Julie, as she goes. Speak kindly to me, Jean. Orders always sound unkind. Now you know. Now you know. Left alone, Jean sighs with relief, sits down at the table, takes out a notebook and pencil, and adds up figures, now and then aloud. Dawn begins to break. Kristen enters dressed for church, carrying his white dicky and tie. Kristen. Lord Jesus, look at the state the place is in. What have you been up to? Turns out the lamp. Oh, Miss Julie invited the crowd in. Did you sleep through it? Didn't you hear anything? I slept like a log. And dressed for church already. Yes. You promised to come to communion with me today. Why, so I did. And you've got my bib and tucker. Come on, then. Sits. Kristen begins to put his things on. Pause. Sleepily. What's the lesson today? It's about the beheading of John the Baptist, I think. That's sure to be horribly long. Hey, you're choking me. Oh, Lord, I'm so sleepy. So sleepy. Yes, what have you been up doing all night? You look absolutely green. Just sitting here talking with Miss Julie. She doesn't know it's proper, that one. I say, Kristen. What? It's queer, really, isn't it? When you come to think of it. Her. What's queer? The whole thing. Kristen, looking at the half-filled glass on the table. Have you been drinking together too? Yes. More shame you. Look me straight in the face. Yes. Is it possible? Is it possible? Yes, it is. Oh, this I would never have believed. How low. You're not jealous of her, surely. No, I'm not. If it had been Clara or Sophie, I'd have scratched your eyes out. But not of her. I don't know why. That's how it is, though. But it's disgusting. You're angry with her, then? No, with you. It was wicked of you, very, very wicked. Poor girl. And mark my words, I won't stay here any longer now, in a place where one can't respect one's employers. Why should one respect them? You should know since you're so smart. But you don't want to stay in the service of people who aren't respectable, do you? I wouldn't demean myself. But it's rather a comfort to find out they're no better than us. I don't think so. If they're no better than us, there's nothing for us to live up to. And oh, think of the Count. Think of him. He's been through so much already. No, I won't stay in the place any longer. A fellow like you, too. If it had been that attorney now or somebody of our own class. Why? What's wrong with, oh, you're all right in your own way, but when all's said and done, there's a difference between one class and another. No, this is something I'll never be able to stomach. That our young lady was so proud and so down on men you never believed she let one come near her should go and give herself to one like you. She who wanted to have poor Diana shot for running after the lodge-keeper's pug. No, I must say. Well, I won't stay here any longer. On the 24th of October, I quit. And then? Well, since you mention it, it's about time you began to look around, if we're ever going to get married. But what am I to look for? I shan't get a place like this when I'm married. I know you won't, but you might get a job as porter or caretaker in some public institution. Government rations are small but sure, and there's a pension for the widow and children. That's all very fine, but it's not in my line to start thinking at once about dying for my wife and children. I must say I had rather big ideas. You and your ideas. You've got obligations too, and you better start thinking about them. Don't you start pestering me about obligations. I've had enough of that. Listens to a sound upstairs. Anyway, we've plenty of time to work things out. Go and get ready now, and we'll be off to church. Who's that walking about upstairs? Don't know. Unless it's Clara. Kristen, going. You don't think the Count could have come back without our hearing him? The Count? No, he can't have. He'd have rung for me. God help us. I never known such goings-on. Exit. The sun has now risen and is shining on the treetops. The light gradually changes until it slants in through the windows. Jean goes to the door and beckons. Julie enters in traveling clothes carrying a small bird cage covered with a cloth which she puts on a chair. I'm ready. Hush! Kristen's up. Julie, in a very nervous state. Does she suspect anything? Not a thing. But my God, what a sight you are. Sight? What do you mean? You're white as a corpse and, pardon me, your face is dirty. Let me wash then. Goes to the sink and washes her face and hands. There. Give me a towel. Oh, the sun is rising. And that breaks the spell. Yes. The spell of Midsummer Eve. But listen, Jean. Come with me. I've got the money. Enough. Enough to start with. Come with me. I can't travel alone today. It's Midsummer Day, remember? I'd be packed into a suffocating train among crowds of people who'd all stare at me. And it would stop at every station while I yearned for wings. No, I can't do that. I simply can't. There will be memories, too. Memories of midsummer days when I was little. The leafy church, birch and lilac, the gaily springing dinner table, relatives, friends, evening in the park, dancing and music and flowers and fun. Oh, however far you run away, there will always be memories of the baggage car, and remorse and guilt. I will come with you. But quickly now then, before it's too late. At once. Put on your things. Picks up cage. No luggage, mind. That would give us away. No, only what we can take with us in the carriage. Jean, fetching his hat. What on earth have you got there? Only my greenfinch. I don't want to leave it behind. Well, I'll be damned. Or to take a bird cage along, are we? You're crazy. Put that cage down. It's the only thing I'm taking from my home. The only living creature who cares for me since Diana went off like that. Don't be cruel. Let me take it. Put that cage down, I tell you, and don't talk so loud. Kristen will hear. No, I won't leave it in strange hands. I'd rather you killed it. Give the little beast here, then I'll wring its neck. But don't hurt it, don't... No, I can't. Give it here. I can. Julie, taking the bird out of the cage and kissing it. Dear little Serena, must you die and leave your mistress? Please don't make a scene. It's your life and future we're worrying about. Come on, quick now. He snatches the bird from her, puts it on a board, and picks up a chopper. Julie turns away. You should have learned how to kill chickens instead of target shooting. You wouldn't faint at a drop of blood. Julie, screaming, Kill me too! Kill me too! You can butcher an innocent creature without a quiver! Oh, how I hate you, how I loathe you! There is blood between us now. I curse the hour I first saw you. I curse the hour I was conceived in my mother's womb. What's the use of cursing? Let's go. Julie, going on the chopping block as if drawn against her will. No, I won't go yet. I can't. I must look. Listen. There's a carriage. Listens without taking her eyes off the board and chopper. You don't think I can bear the sight of blood. You think I'm so weak. Oh, how I should like to see your blood and your brains on a chopping block. I'd like to see the whole of your sex swimming like that in the sea of blood. I think I could drink out of your skull, bathe my feet in your broken breast, and eat your heart-roasted hull. You think I'm weak? You think I love you, that my womb yearned for your seed, and I want to carry your offspring under my heart and nourish it with my blood? You think I want to bear your child and take your name? By the way, what is your name? I've never heard of your surname. I don't suppose you've got one. I should be Mrs. Hovel or Madame Dunghill. Your dog wearing my collar, your lackey with my crest on your buttons. I share you with my cook, with my own servant's rival. Oh. You think I'm a coward and will run away. No, now I'm going to stay and let the storm break. My father will come back, find his desk broken open, his money gone. Then he'll ring that bell twice for the valet, and then he'll send for the police. I shall tell them everything, everything. Oh, how wonderful to make an end of it all. A real end. He has a stroke and dies, and that's the end of all of us. Just peace and quietness. Eternal rest. The coat of arms broken on the coffin, and the Count's line extinct. But the valet's line goes on in an orphanage, wins laurels in the gutter, and ends in jail. There speaks the noble blood. Bravo, Miss Julie. But now don't let the cat out of the bag. Kristen enters dressed for church, carrying a prayer book. Julie rushes to her and flings herself into her arms for protection. Help me, Kristen! Protect me from this man! Kristen, unmoved and cold. What goings on for a feast day morning? Sees the board. And what a filthy mess. What's it all about? Why are you screaming and carrying on so? Kristen, you're a woman and my friend. Beware of that scoundrel. Jean, embarrassed. While you ladies are talking things over, I'll go and shave. Slips into his room. You must understand, you must listen to me. I certainly don't understand such loose ways. Where are you off to in those traveling clothes? And he had his hat on, didn't he? Listen, Kristen, listen, I'll tell you everything. I don't want to know anything. You must listen. What to? Your nonsense with Jean? I don't care a rap about that. It's nothing to do with me. But if you're thinking of getting him to run off with you, we'll soon put a stop to that. Julie, very nervously. Please try to be calm, Kristen. And listen, I can't stay here, nor can Jean. So we must go abroad. But you see, I've had an idea. Supposing we all three go abroad to Switzerland and start a hotel together. I've got some money, you see. Jean and I could run the whole thing. And I thought you would take charge of the kitchen. Wouldn't that be splendid? Say yes, do. If you come with us, everything will be fine. Oh, do say yes. Puts her arms around Kristen. Kristen, coolly thinking. You've never traveled, Kristen. You should go abroad and see the world. You have no idea how nice it is traveling by train. New faces all the time in new countries. On our way through Hamburg, we'll go to the zoo. You'll love that. And we'll go to the theater and the opera too. And when we get to Munich, there'll be the museums, dear, and pictures by Rubens and Raphael, the great painters, you know. You've heard of Munich, haven't you? where King Ludwig lived, the king who went mad. We'll see his castles. Some of his castles are still just like in fairy tales. And from there it's not far to Switzerland. And the Alps. Think of the Alps, Kristen dear, covered with snow in the middle of summer. And there are oranges there and trees that are green the whole year round. Jean is seen in the door of his room, sharpening his razor on a stop which he holds with his teeth and his left hand. He listens to the talk with satisfaction, and now and then nods approval. Julie continues, and then we'll go to a hotel, and I'll sit at the desk while Jean receives the guests, and goes out marketing and writes letters. There's life for you. Trains whistling, buses driving up, bells ringing upstairs and downstairs, and I shall make out the bills, and I shall cook them too. You've no idea how nervous travelers are when it comes to paying their bills. And you'll sit like a queen in the kitchen. Of course there won't be any standing at the stove for you. You'll always have to be nicely dressed and ready to be seen, and with your looks... No, I'm not flattering you. One fine day you'll catch yourself a husband. Some rich Englishman, I wouldn't wonder. They're the ones who are easy to catch. And then we'll get rich and build ourselves a villa on Lake Como. Of course, it rains there a little now and then, but the sun must shine there too sometimes, even though it seems gloomy. And if not, then we can come home again. Come back. Here. Or somewhere else. Look here, Miss Julie. Do you believe all that yourself? Do I believe it? Yes. I don't know. I don't believe anything anymore. Sinks down on the bench, her head in her arms on the table. Nothing. Nothing at all. Kristen turns to Jean. So you meant to beat it, did you? Jean, disconcerted, putting the razor on the table. Beat it? What are you talking about? You've heard Miss Julie's plan, and though she's tired now with being up all night, it's a perfectly sound plan. Oh, is it? If you thought I'd work for that, kindly use decent language in front of your mistress. Mistress? Yes. Well. Just listen to that. Yes. It would be a good thing if you did listen and talked less. Miss Julie is your mistress, and what's made you lose your respect for her now ought to make you feel the same about yourself. I've always had enough self-respect to despise other people, not to go below my own station. Has the Count's cook ever gone with the groom or the swineherd? Tell me that. No. You were lucky enough to have a high-class chap for your beau. High class, all right. Selling the oats out of the Count's stable. You're a fine one to talk. Taking a commission on the groceries and bribes from the butcher. What the devil? And now you can't feel any respect for your employers. You! Are you coming to church with me? I should think you need a good sermon after your fine deeds. No, I'm not going to church today. You can go alone and confess your own sins. Yes, I'll do that and bring back enough forgiveness to cover yours too. The Savior suffered and died on the cross for all our sins, and if we go to him with faith and a penitent heart, he takes all our sins upon himself. Even grocery thefts. Do you believe that, Kristen? That is my living faith, as sure as I stand here. The faith I learnt as a child and have kept ever since, Miss Julie. But where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. Oh, if I had your faith, but you see you can't have it without God's special grace, and it's not given to all to have that. Who is it given, then? That's the great secret of the working of grace, Miss Julie. God is no respecter of persons, and with him the last shall be first. Then I suppose he does not respect the last. And it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. That's how it is, Miss Julie. Now I'm going, alone. And on my way I shall tell the groom not to let any of the horses out, in case anyone should want to leave before the Count gets back. Goodbye. Exit. What a devil. And all on account of a greenfinch. Never mind the greenfinch. Do you see any way out of this, any end to it? No. If you were in my place, what would you do? In your place? Wait a bit. If I was a woman, a lady of rank who had fallen. I don't know. Yes, I do know now. Julie, picking up the razor and making a gesture. This? Yes. But I wouldn't do it, you know. There's a difference between us. Because you're a man and I'm a woman. What is the difference? The usual difference between man and woman. Julie, holding the razor. I'd like to, but I can't. My father couldn't either that time he wanted to. No. He didn't want to. He had to be revenged first. And now my mother is revenged again. Through me. Didn't you ever love your father, Miss Julie? Deeply. But I hated him too. Unconsciously. And he let me be brought up to despise my own sex. To be half woman, half man. Whose fault is what's happened? My father's, my mother's, or my own? My own. I haven't anything that's my own. I haven't one single thought that I didn't get from my father, one emotion that didn't come from my mother, and as for this last idea all about people being equal, I got that from him. My fiancé. That's why I called him a cad. How can it be my fault? Push the responsibilities onto Jesus like Kristen does? No, I'm too proud and, thanks to my father's teaching, too intelligent. As for all that about a rich person not being able to get into heaven, it's just a lie. But Kristen, who has money in the savings bank, will certainly not get in. Whose fault is it? What does it matter whose fault it is? In any case, I must take the blame and bear the consequences. Yes, but there are 2 sharp rings on the bell. Julie jumps to her feet. Jean changes into his livery. The Count is back. Supposing Kristen goes to the speaking tube, presses it, and listens. Has he been to his desk yet? This is Jean, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good, sir. At once, sir? Very good, sir. In half an hour. What did he say? My God, what did he say? He ordered his boots and his coffee in half an hour. Then there's half an hour. Oh, I'm so tired. I can't do anything. Can't be sorry. Can't run away. Can't stay. Can't live. Can't die. Help me. Order me and I'll obey like a dog. Do me this last service. Save my honor. Save his name. You know what I ought to do, but haven't the strength to do. Use your strength and order me to do it. I don't know why. I can't now. I don't understand. It's just as if this coat made me. I can't give you orders, and now that the Count has spoken to me, I can't quite explain, but, well, that devil of a lackey is bending my back again. I believe if the Count came down now and ordered me to cut my throat, I'd do it on the spot. Then pretend you're him and I'm you. You did some fine acting before when you knelt to me and played the aristocrat. Or, have you ever seen a hypnotist at the theater? He nods. He says to the person, take the broom, and he takes it. He says sweep, and he sweeps. But the person has to be asleep. Julie, as if in a trance. I am asleep already. The whole room is turned to smoke, and you look like a stove like a man in black with a tall hat. Your eyes are glowing like coals when the fire is low, and your face is a white patch like ashes The sunlight has now reached the floor and lights up Jean. How nice and warm it is. She holds out her hand as though warming them at a fire. And so light, so peaceful. Jean, putting the razor in her hand. Here is the broom. Go now while it's light. Out to the barn, and whispers in her ear. Julie, waking. Thank you. I'm going now. To rest. But just tell me that even the first can receive the gift of grace. The first? No. No, I can't tell you that. But wait. Miss Julie, I've got it. You aren't one of the first any longer. You're one of the last. That's true. I'm one of the very last. I am the last. Oh, but I can't go. Tell me again to go. No. I can't now either. I can't. And the first shall be last. Don't think. Don't think. You're taking my strength away too and making me a coward. What's that? I thought I saw the bell move. To be so frightened of a bell. Yes, but it's not just a bell. There's somebody behind it. A hand moving it, and something else moving the hand. And if you stop your ears, yes, it rings louder than ever. Rings and rings until you answer. And then it's too late. Then the police come and the bell rings twice loudly. Jean flinches, then straightens himself up. It's horrible. But there's no other way to end it. Go. Julie walks firmly out the door. Curtain. And that is the end of our two plays by August Strindberg. The first one being called The Stronger, and the second, Miss Julie. I hope that you enjoyed these plays. It allowed me to be a bit more crazy than I have been in the past. It's always fun when you get to try and stop being, everything is so serious all the time, and then you just get to kind of go loose and just be like, we're having a mental breakdown. It's always a fun time to go about that. And my body totally wasn't shaking at that point. As always, if you could show your support by liking or subscribing, or whatever in your particular social media uses, I greatly appreciate that. And share it with your friends, your theater friends, your speech friends, even if it's just to mock me. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to have you back in Brendan Moyer's Playwright Corner. Thank you.